Decision making within the condominium corporation is handled by means of voting. Everything has to be voted on. Why? Because everyone who buys a property on that condominium property has equal rights to every decision that is made. That is why the law provides voting as a means for decision making. But the more units you have, the more ownership you have per unit decides how much voting weight that you carry. So if you own, for example, 10 units, those are counted as 10 votes. It's not, even if it's owned by just one person, it's counted as 10 votes because it's the units that vote, not the individual that is voting. So every unit, if I attend a meeting and I own 20 units on that condominium property, that means I'm carrying 20 votes. Voting rights depends on the percentage of units that you own on that particular condominium property. Condominiums may hold quite a huge number of units. It may hold 100 or even more, 200. And in decision making, for us to be able to make decisions quickly, we have to narrow down, find out narrowing down that number. And that's why the law provides for percentages. The percentages of voting that is allowed may range from 50% or 75% or 100%, which means if you're deciding on an issue that has to be passed into a rule or a regulation, the law provides for either a voting percentage of the total owners of units on that condominium property, which may include if 50% of the owners are voted, or if 75% of the owners are voted, or if 100% of the owners are voted. But how are these percentages decided? The more severe the issue being voted on is, the higher the voting percentage has to be. For example, if the issue being voted on is a bit weak, or it's not that challenging or severe, or impacted by law, then a lower voting percentage can be passed. If members have to vote on an issue, like if we need to leave parking lots labeled or not labeled, it's a simple issue. It can be voted against. We can take pass it at maybe 50% voting. So 50% is for a very minor rule that needs to be passed. Let's say we'd like to make a decision on a more severe issue, like what to do for members who don't pay condominium fees. People actually go into areas for years. You find someone has an area in condominium fees of over 6 million. What should we do to such a person? Now, this is a more severe. It's in the middle there. So we'll go with 75%. So to make a decision on what to do for these people, for example, let's say we are going to switch off their power, or we are going to cut off their water supply in their unit, so that if they are not going to pay condominium fees, they won't receive also supplies of some services like electricity or water or their garbage, or they won't be allowed into the premises. That is a more severe issue to be decided on. So to be comfortable with the decision made, you'll need about 75% of the members or the owners of that condominium corporation to vote. At least you need 75% of the owners to vote on that matter. In case anything goes on wrong and you end up in court, you're backed up because you're within what the Condominium Act provides or approves. So at what point do we need their 100% voting? Because there are some instances where you need 100%, where everyone has to vote for an issue to be passed or approved. Yeah, those are more severe cases. For example, let me give an example of if we decide as a member of a condominium corporation to sell our property. If let's say you have 100 units on a condominium corporation and all of you decide we want to sell this property and get out of this corporation, you want to basically liquidate everything. There you will need approval of everyone. Everyone has to vote. Even if one person is missing on that approval, it cannot be passed. The law requests that everyone has to approve, and everyone has to vote yes. You have to get 100% approval that yes, we have to sell this property. 100%. So if it's less even by one person, you cannot pass it. The decision that requires 100% voting rate, the law calls it the unanimous resolution, which means everyone has to vote on that particular item and they have to vote yes. The voting rights or the voting rates that are attached to each decision that is to be made varies from decision to decision, depending on how severe that decision that has to be made is. In some cases, though, you may not need to vote. Everyone in the corporation, the owners, don't need to vote. The decision is made by the board members. The condominium corporation has a board that is headed by the chairman or the chairperson that may make decisions on behalf of the other members. This may include small legal decisions that don't hold so much weight. Yeah, for example, a property manager to hire, you don't need the approval of all the members. The board can handle that. They can do it for the good of the other members. So depending on the severity of the decision that has to be made, it will need everyone involved, or a decision to be made by 50% of the members, or a decision to be made by 75% of the members, or a decision to be made by 100% of the member, or even the board can make a decision on a matter. It should also be noted that these decisions that are made through voting or by the board should be incorporated into the condominium corporation's rules and regulations or the condominium corporation's constitution, so that it governs everyone that owns or lives within that condominium corporation. Decisions that have to be made as we vote in the condominium corporation need to be documented, written down, and signatures of people who have approved that particular decision got and stamped on. The condominium corporation needs to have a seal and maybe a stamp that binds these agreements. And so they are well documented, because you never know. One way or another, you're dealing with people from every kind of backgrounds and personality. One way or another, or one time, you may end up in court. But if you have these documentations, you can always pull them out, and you don't need to do much in the courtroom. You just pull them out and the documents will speak for themselves. The law gives voting rights of the members so much weight. So as long as the members of corporation have correctly voted upon an issue or a decision, it carries so much weight, and it can back you in courts of law, it can back you in decision making, it can back you on anything that may arise against that condominium corporation.